You're listening to the all-new CultureCast, Chicagoland's finest podcast.
Welcome to the all-new edition of the all-new CultureCast.
Yay!
I'm the Gorehound, and with me is...
Nick.
Hey, Nick. How are you this weekend?
I am exhausted this weekend. How are you, Gorehound?
I am equally as exhausted.
Yeah.
We just got back from the the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Exposition in Chicago, just hours ago. So
yes.
This is fresh.
Fresh, yes. Yeah. C2E2 2016.
Yeah,
we were able to
all-new
attend.
CultureCast review of it. So.
Yes. We were there for much the entire weekend. I was there all 3 days. Yeah. And Gorehound joined me on Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
And so, as we were talking before this recording, the good, the bad, and the ugly with the C2E2. Yes. First of all, for those of you who thought we were going to have a Turbo Kid review last week, sorry. We honestly, kind of due to C2E2, we were unable to get together to do a podcast recording for that. So, we will have that probably for you next week. So, sorry to the two of you who are anticipating that, but right. we'll get to that. But anyway, enough about that. Now we're about C2E2. So before we jump into this week's C2E2, because we got a lot to talk about, I would say, let's do a little history. Gorehound, what's your convention experience here?
Well, I went to the first comic book convention with Slash and Slicer maybe like 3 years ago in August.
Actually, that was 4 years ago.
4 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, a long time ago. And that was my first one, and I went with you. And so that was awesome. And I've been going to them. I've been going to I think a new one every time.
Now, the first one you went to, that was Wizard World, right?
It was in August, so I know it wasn't C2E2.
Yeah. It was in, was it Rosemont?
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not sure if I've been there since. I think I've been going to C2E2. I went there the next year and then each year after that because it's like, there's nothing else in Chicago besides that one. So you got to go.
There's, that's very true. There was C2E2, the Wizard World, also known as the Chicago Comic-Con, started years and years and years ago, and it used to be fantastic. I went to it a couple times when I was in high school, a few times when I was in college, and then I got out of comic book conventions for years, and I started returning to it a little less than 10 years ago on and off. Not consistently, but, whenever. 2009, I went to Wizard World. And right before I started grad school, and it was great. I had so much fun, and everything was wonderful. It was the first time I was at a comic book convention in a couple of years. Then I came back, I think 2 years later in 2011, and my goodness, it had changed tremendously, and I hated it. There wasn't much of a comic book presence at the show. Prices had skyrocketed, in my opinion, for tickets. There wasn't much value there. There's a lot of celebrity endorsements. Let me back up. A lot of celebrity appearances, and I don't care so much about that necessarily. And I was really sort of let down. And I wasn't planning on going to that one again, but I know you and the Graveyard Queen were going to go to it in 2012. You guys had encouraged me to come along with, so I'm like, okay, I'll come along with, and it had gotten, in my opinion, worse than the previous year. And you guys had a blast. I think you guys seemed to have a lot of fun, which is great. I was happy for you, but for what I like to get out of that stuff, I was sort of disappointed. And at around that time, that same year in 2012, I had attended C2E2 for the first time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's like, wow, this is so great. And
C2E2, that is?
Yeah, C2E2. Okay. And it felt like this is where it's at, and I've been going to that one, much to my surprise, yearly. I don't think if it wasn't for my fiance, I don't think I would be going as much, which I had kind of gotten her into, and she has a blast at these things. And
yeah, she does.
I don't. I mean, hindsight being 20/20, who knows? But I wouldn't have seen myself being as like, yes, I need to go, I want to go, if it wasn't so much for her enthusiasm on wanting to go. So I guess there's that. Zach and I, in our previous forum as the Culture Cast, we had done a couple of different podcasts and entries about conventions and C2E2. So this episode sort of is a spiritual successor to that, as Gorehound and I talk about our experience this past weekend there. So I want to do a little history on our history with conventions, so people who are listening to this kind of know that we I think we're pros. We're kind of veterans in our own way of attending these things. So, and you're right, in the Chicagoland area there aren't that many. There's a lot of smaller ones, but in terms
like the
of
DuPage comic book convention,
what they call MightyCon, which I've never been to. I am intrigued by it, but
we'll check it out.
In terms of the larger ones with a lot of the commercialized ones, so to speak, there's pretty much 2 games in town. Although I did hear about this other one that I guess was last week called Heroes Con or something. I'd never heard of it. Have you?
No.
Yeah, so I don't even know that's a thing. I haven't had a chance to look it up. So if anyone's listening that knows anything, drop us a line. We'll be happy to learn more. So
yeah.
Anyway, so let's. Do you want to jump into this thing?
Yeah. Well, why don't you start us off with Friday? What was your experience on Friday?
Okay. Well, let me preface this that this is the first year that I've dressed up. I've never dressed up in a costume, cosplay at these things before.
But you fit in awesome. Nobody would have guessed that this was your first time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The first day I was the Golden Age Flash, and my fiance was Catwoman. And she was the old school Catwoman, the Catwoman that wore purple and the green cape and everything. And so we made those costumes, and a lot of people stopped us.
Oh my gosh!
In our costume for that on Friday there, because we were, as my fiance puts it, which I need to give her a nickname for the show. Like your wife is the Graveyard Queen. I need to give her something, and I haven't decided on what, so I got to figure that out. But so she dressed up as Catwoman. We were like not the typical, not the standard ones, because when you see the Flash, you always see the one in the skin tight jumpsuit. I'm the old one who has like the T-shirt that has like the lightning bolt on it and the Mercury hat. And most time you see Catwoman, you see like the tight leather, and she wasn't the one that was doing the tight leather. So people were like, "Oh, that's unique. Let me take pictures of you." And I might be biased, but my fiance looked fantastic as the Catwoman. I made the costume for her, so I knew she would look good, but oh, she looked smoking in that. I was really taken with that. And she looked good. Friday was fun. Friday was the lightest day. It was fantastic. You can walk around. It was busy, but wasn't overly busy.
Yeah, and I would imagine that would have been the lightest day, because I was considering going down there, but in particular for the NPR podcast Ask Me Another, I really wanted to see that, even though there was a bit of a surcharge for that.
Yes.
It would have been worth it had I bothered to really make the logistics make it happen. Because I get off work at 4:00 in Downers Grove, and I would have had to hustle to get down there.
Yeah, that would have been tight.
Right. And that the train schedule was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, because I'm also not really actually, I'm a newbie to taking taxis and Ubers.
Yes, this was your first taxi experience this past weekend.
Yes, yeah, I take Uber quite a bit while we're in downtown, and mostly because that's what hipsters have introduced me to. So I was just like, okay, I'm comfortable with that, because because I used to think that when you went into Chicago, you pretty much had to be within walking distance of Ogilvy or Union Station, or else you're driving in. I pretty much stayed within walking distance of Ogilvy. But after taking Uber, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to the city. So yeah, I took my first 2 cab rides this weekend.
I'm glad we could pop your cabbie cherry there. So,
and I do have to say the best story about riding with the first cabbie is Nick asks this cabbie, how's your day going? And the cabbie goes, I hate my job. And I'm just like, this is awesome.
You had some good cabbie stories this weekend.
Yeah.
The guy that you had Sunday morning, what did he say to you?
Oh yeah. I went with my mother, and we took it from Union to the McCormick place, and the driver was actually, he claims that he was an extra. The driver he gave me his card, James S. Evans, says that he was an extra in many movies, including Batman vs. Superman and The Dark Knight and Man of Steel. I take his word for it because his photo on the Uber ride was like a cover shot, and he was telling us all these stories where I'm like, and he had a 4.9 rating. He told me a few scenes.
He's got to be legit.
Yeah. I'm gonna check out the few scenes that he said, see if I recognize them. And he also gave me his card because he said he's a certified metal detectorist, and at my place of employment, we would sometimes use that. So,
you're making connections.
Yeah.
You never know who you're going to meet when you take a taxi or a Uber.
You're right. They may hate their job, or they may love life. You never know.
That was great. I hate my job. It's like, well, at least he was friendly with us. But anyway, going back to Friday.
Yeah.
It was, like I said, it was a very open day in that crowds weren't too crazy. But here's the weird thing. The panels, the first panel that my fiance and I were I'm going to refer to her as Catwoman from here on out, because that sounds better. That Catwoman and I were going to see was this Spooks and Spectres of Chicago. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as I'm aware, that panel wasn't being sponsored by any particular podcast or known people. It just sounded like it was a cool panel to go to. I mean, you know.
Yeah, it did.
And we went there. We were walking into the line about 15, 20 minutes before the panel was supposed to start, which granted is always dangerous to do, but figured this is not, something that's going to draw a huge crowd. Well, our mistake, because by the time we got there, they capped out the line. They're like, sorry, we can't fit anyone else in the room. I'm like, what? We weren't like upset because that's. It is what it is, but we were surprised that thing had drawn such a crowd.
Yeah, because last year we went to, I went to one about like local horror authors and like trends in horror novelization, and I mean that place was half empty or half full. I'm not going to take a side on that, but people were falling asleep. I was dozing off. It was not entertaining, to say the least. So, yeah, the fact that one sold out, to say.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was that. Some of the other panels that we went to, I went to this great panel called Gonna Geek Podcasting, which is a podcasting network trying to help others who are interested in podcasting, such as ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I took a lot away from that podcast, which I won't get into now because... I don't want to admit how awful our podcast actually is, but I hope to get us better through the stuff that I learned from this thing, so I was impressed by that. But yeah, I had fun. I had a little thrill on Friday as well. I was able to meet one of my favorite modern artists, Francis Manipul, who did the art and writing duties for The Flash that I really, really enjoyed from 2011 to 2013-14, thereabouts. He and his partner Brian Bissolet, but Brian B, whose last name I can't pronounce, who did about 25 to 30 issues. And actually, when I used to do a feature on the blog called the Speed Reading.
Flash?
Yeah.
Flash Friday? Was it?
No, it was just speed reading. Anytime I reviewed each issue of The Flash, which I've taken a pause on because I kind of got burnt out on comic book collecting, at least new stuff. So I don't know if I'll ever get back to that, but I love their stuff, and I love his artwork. I absolutely love his artwork. So it was cool to get to see him, and he signed a couple of my books, and he signed a Flash poster that I had, and he did a little sketch on it, so it was like kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was neat. I was kind of thrilled with that. I was excited.
Yeah,
so that was Friday. I mean, nothing crazy or anything. So
then Saturday, I joined you there.
Yes.
We arrived separately But yeah, then me and the Graveyard Queen came, and we were not dressed up.
Losers.
I've been wanting to, and I think next year is the year that it's going to happen, with or without her. So
The Graveyard Queen would be a perfect Daria.
She would. She would.
All she has to do is like find the jacket.
Yeah. And yeah. But yeah. So we showed up. It was that day was a blast. I had a lot of fun. It was packed, but it's like you're expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was more packed than last year. I just know that it was as packed as I was expecting it to be. I felt like there was a lot more to see. A lot more vendors to see, and the vendors were a lot more appealing, and I felt like they had a lot more to offer. Like that 3D modeling exhibit.
Oh, yeah.
So cool, but I'm like really interested in that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I was very disappointed with throughout the entire weekend was the celebrity appearances. I really felt like there was nobody worth seeing. And I was even hesitant about going, but I just knew how much fun it was. And I was kind of hoping that, like, last minute they might say, like, and surprise appearance by Kevin Smith. But obviously that didn't happen.
Right. I agree with you on that one. One of the things I was somewhat disappointed, outside of like a few folks, I was kind of disappointed in the guests that they had. I'm not big on celebrity guests so much. It's not my thing necessarily. I know that's more your thing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the celebrity, I'm more interested in the artists and the writers. That's more, my alley.
Yeah.
And I gotta say,
that sounds a lot more legit. Just to say, I mean, because yes, it is comic and entertainment expo, but I feel like the entertainment comes second.
Yeah.
Like, this is more about comics, and yeah, it should be more focused on the people who are writing, the people who are drawing the comics, the people who are the creators of these comics, not just everybody looking to make money off of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I mean, everybody was selling Deadpool stuff.
Oh my God! We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll table that discussion in a little bit. But yeah, you raise an excellent point. I feel this year the names, while some of them were big, maybe to some other people, for me, I was kind of like let down by it. Outside of Francis Manapul, I was just kind of like, Which I guess in one way it's okay, because that way I'm not like running around trying to meet these people, get autographs, which I was kind of like let down by that. Having said that, I did have the opportunity to meet Supergirl on Saturday. Melissa Benoist. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her.
I think it's Benoist.
Benoist?
Yeah, that's my best guess.
That works. I'm sure she's listening to the show right now.
Yeah, right.
So she could send in an email or a call in or whatever, and we'll be happy to correct that in a future episode. But I was able to. I went to the Supergirl panel because I do watch Supergirl, the TV show. Mm-hmm. I won't say it's I won't say it's my favorite show, because it's not. I enjoy it. There are other
X-Files is better.
X-Files, except for that last episode. Right. There are other shows I enjoy, at least in terms of the superhero genre. There are other shows I might prefer over Supergirl, but I like it enough to where I was interested in going to see the panel. And then I think I was more spurred on by, ironically, my fiance to actually go and get a photo op with her. Which, if you have, for those of you listening, have never been to a convention or have never gotten the photo ops, they're neat. But don't expect to be actually talking to the person.
Right.
You get overpaid for what's essentially a picture, but whatever. And then you get in a line and you wait in that line until they're ready to start the pictures, and then the line suddenly moves and you're like, great, this is moving fast. I'm going to get to this person, and they put you behind this little room, this little curtain room, and you have the handlers there screaming at you, and I walk into the room and they yell out, "No kissing, no touching." I'm like, why would I do that to begin with? Why does that need to be said? I have no desire to kiss her. That's really creepy.
Yeah.
But I guess it must have happened. Otherwise, they wouldn't say it.
Yeah, right.
And they have like a little mirror so you can like fix yourself. But they move so fast, the mirror's worthless because it's like, move. that you get up there, you stand up next to the person. They say 3, 2, 1, snap. Now get out of here. You might have a chance to say hi, and then you're suddenly like, well, I will never. Okay, that happened. So they herd you in like cattle. The thing's done. Hopefully you didn't blink because they ain't taking seconds. But yeah, it turned out to be a good picture. So that's a little fun thing that I did. So
yeah, that was a good photo. So yeah, because I looked at the celebrity guest list, and the only person that I would have considered getting an autograph was from the James Olms.
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah, because he was actually in Blade Runner, and he was the guy who did the origami unicorn.
Yep.
And I got a tattoo of that origami unicorn.
Oh,
so I
that's
thought
cool.
that would be like I could like pull my shirt down, and be like, check it out, you did that. But I was like totally not worth it because he was such like a supporting character in there, and
You should have went up to him in the autograph line and just like talked to him like, look what I got. But then you'd be standing in a line for
right,
for very little reason.
right. And I actually felt like this year like there was so much to see that I didn't get enough time
Right.
to see it.
Can I really quickly? I'm sorry. I want to go back to Supergirl for a second because I have a really cute story. So I was in line, and behind me was this father and this little girl. And this little girl had to be anywhere 8, 9, maybe. And like I was talking to her, I'm like, "So you enjoying the show?" She's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." She was so excited, and she was so excited to see Supergirl. I saw her briefly after she took the picture, and her face was just beaming like no other. I guess her dad took her to the show, and he didn't tell her that. Well, first he didn't tell her that Svengoolie was there. I guess they like to watch Svengoolie, and so she was excited about that. And then they're
Wait,
like,
she was excited about Svengoolie?
I guess so. I guess they watch him at home. So when you're a little kid and you see someone you watch at home, But I guess she really likes Supergirl, and her dad was when they were in line for Svengoolie. Her dad looks at the clock and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna miss it," because like the panel was beginning, and the girl's like, "What?" Because he didn't like, "No, I'll tell you when we get there." And so they go on the panel, and I guess that's when he told her that Supergirl is there, and then he got a ticket where she can go and get a picture with her. And I guess that just made her day. She was like so super excited, and it's that thing that's just so adorable. It's just like a little kid, and they're eating all this up, and before they become whole jaded with the whole comic book industry and entertainment industry. But it was just so cute. So
before you realize that Geico is at the center of the C2E2 floor, and you realize just how
commercialized it all is.
Right.
We should talk about the other panel that we went to. I guess it's also a bit of a commercial. We went to the Stuff You Missed in History.
Yeah. This was like the thing that I was looking forward to most, because most of you know I listen to podcasts. I listen at least 2 podcasts a day, because I sit at my desk so much, and I don't listen to Stuff You Missed in History class a whole lot, but I do listen to it regardless. I find it a little bit too scripted, and I kind of like more of the casual flow.
The free form.
Right. But it's still very good because I feel like I'm actually learning stuff, because it's stuff that, nobody is ever going to talk about unless you're like a history buff, and it's fun to listen to. And the topic wasn't that great. I mean, they talk about like really obscure stuff.
Mm-hmm. The topic that they talked about at the C2E2 was the history of pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a weird topic, but I can see why they picked it, because they're in Chicago, and what's Chicago known for? Pizza, among other things. So it's light, kind of like universal. So I can see why they did that.
Right, and it's not going to be too difficult, because if they choose something
like they said, like the gangsters of Chicago, it's like, all right, how many people are going to be interested in that necessarily? So
right.
So I can see why they went with it. And I like them. I never listened to the podcast. It was very interesting. So the only thing, and I don't know if you noticed this during the show, but I was sitting there and I was so exhausted from the previous day and the day so far. And I'm sitting there in my costume, which we haven't talked about yet, but I know we will. I'm laying there, I got my head in the right spot, and I'm just starting to doze off during their panel. And eventually I got my second win. When we finished up with the panel, and you were waiting to get your picture, one of the hosts came up to me or was saying something like, "Oh, I love your costume. I was looking at your costume throughout the entire thing. I wanted to shout up. I couldn't." I'm thinking, oh, I hope she didn't see me that I almost fell asleep during her panel. I felt really bad about that.
But I did get a photo with them, and my impressions were they were a lot smaller than how they looked on stage. But they were as I imagined them.
To go back to talking about costumes, because you and Graveyard Queen did not dress up, so shame on you. But on that day, my fiance was Rey from Star Wars: A New Hope, Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and I was BB-8 from the same movie. And how I was BB-8 was I took a exercise ball and paper mache around it, and subsequently painted the BB-8 markings, and I walked around like that all day long. And a lot of people stopped me for their picture.
Oh, so many people, yeah.
I think I was one of maybe 2 BB-8s, and the second one was like a little kid.
Right.
And so I was kind of unique in that regard. So there were a ton of Reys there, both Saturday, well, all 3 days. A lot of people dressed up as Rey, which doesn't surprise me. A lot of little girls were dressed up as Rey too, so that was good. And then I don't know, we didn't really stay for any of the late night stuff on Saturday.
Yeah, but there was a Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure would have been fantastic.
But it was at like 7:45, and
and
it's just way too late.
Right.
I was exhausted. Before we discuss Sunday, I want to kind of jump into something that this.
Wait! Before we move on, since we're on the topic of costumes.
Oh yeah. That's yeah.
We're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly, I have to say, were the Harley Quinns.
Okay, we better tread carefully here before we either upset the Harley Quinn status quo or upset people who we don't want to be accused of body shaming. So
I understand that, but I feel like before Suicide Squad was coming out, there were a lot of unique Harley Quinns out there. I mean, there was really nobody who really dressed the same. But this year, every single Harley Quinn looked exactly the same. Did you notice that?
Yeah. The Catwoman and I, before we went into the show, we were discussing, okay, what are we going to find out here? And we surmised that there are going to be a ton of Harley Quinns and a ton of Deadpools. And we were going to do a running count of everyone that we saw. Unfortunately, we only did it for Friday because Saturday was too hard to do because I was in the costume and I was the one keeping track of this. And Sunday, we just were like, screw it. But on Friday, we did a count. We counted at least 28 Harley Quinns and 18 Deadpools. This was on Friday. There were probably more that we missed.
Yeah.
There were a lot of Harley Quinns in previous years, but with the new Suicide Squad movie coming out, skyrocketed up. And many of them were from the upcoming movie because it's
and it just universalized every single Harley Quinn costume out there. All of them had the fishnet stockings and the daddy's little girl and the ponytails with tips.
Yep. There was one or two we saw in the classic Harley Quinn, like where they had like the bodysuit and the jester sort of thing. So that was kind of cool to see. But yeah, most were Margot Robbie.
Right, and it's just a shame because it's like there's a lot that you can do with that costume. And it's just been universalized.
Yeah.
So
same thing with Deadpool. No one would care. There have been always Deadpools because he's always been a popular comic book character. Yeah. But thanks to the movie, with it being super popular and everything, there were a ton of Deadpools out there today.
Yeah. And I don't feel like if you wear, just like your regular outfit and then a Deadpool mask, are you really dressing up as Deadpool? I feel like you really have to, actually do something worthwhile to, pick it up.
There were a couple of, I don't know how old the kid was because he had a mask on, but he was pretty tiny. So I have to imagine he had to be around 10 and dressed up as Deadpool walking around today. And in my mind, I'm thinking, you are way too young to be Deadpool right now.
Yeah.
Because chances are he probably never read the comics, which I'm not judging that, but he probably understands Deadpool from the movie. That movie is not for kids at all.
Yeah, it's rated R.
Yeah, he should not have gone to see that movie. Shame on those parents who took him to see Deadpool. But yeah, there were a lot of Deadpools. And let's face it, Harley Quinn and Deadpool are pretty much the same character, but just one's a DC, one's a Marvel.
Yeah.
And I would love to see, and apparently there was one, but I didn't notice it today, like a Harley pool, like combining the two characters as one costume. That would be clever. I'd be down for seeing that. Sunday, so day 3.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the consensus on day 3?
I felt like, I mean, it did end at 5 o'clock, and we got there at 12 o'clock. So I did feel kind of rushed. But then I'm thinking back, like, if we really stayed like 30 extra minutes, would it have made it any different? So I don't know. I do regret missing the It's Super Effective podcast. But, a guy's got to sleep.
Nonsense. So. That's what the train is for. Who does that? There's no such thing as sleep during C2E2.
I did forgo my morning podcast so that I could get some sleep. But Gorehound's got a stressful life. He's got to balance the weekend. He can't go, full force all weekend. He has to recover a little bit. I regret it, but...
You're not a true fan.
Yeah. In my defense, I never actually really listened to this Pokemon podcast called It's Super Effective. I listened to it maybe 3 times, and it was just like, it's like super Pokemon. Like, I'm just like a casual Pokemon player, like catching all these Pokemon references here and there. And I occasionally, I'm playing the White 2 right now, but I listened to these 3 and I just could not really get hold. But you didn't. What panels did you check out this morning?
The only one we really checked out was John Ratzenberger.
You didn't go to one? I thought you went to one at 10.
There was one we wanted to check out called Geek Parenting Do-It-Yourself Crafts.
Oh, right. Okay.
And which sounded interesting. We went there, and it was kind of what we feared was going to be, where you're there with your kid, and you're making like fun little things. Yeah. And so we really couldn't do much with it, obviously, because we don't have kids.
Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, this is not for us. But so the only actual panel that we went to was John Ratzenberger.
Okay.
It was a good panel. That was a good one.
Yeah. He really was entertaining. Mm-hmm. I've actually noticed that a lot of the panels that I've gone to at every C2E2, a lot of them I've dozed off at. And as long as they can keep my attention and I'm not feeling like I'm dozing.
Thumbs up.
I mean, the environment is very doze-inducing because you're walking around everywhere. They turn off the lights. They start talking to you, and you're just like, oh, man.
Wah, wah, wah.
You're just fading out.
The one thing I noticed, and I don't know if they did this because they didn't have any other rooms that would work, or they just severely overestimated John Ratzenberger's popularity, but they held it in the main stage / room S406, which is the biggest room that they have. So they usually put the biggest panels. On Saturday, the Supergirl panel was there, and it was packed. In past, they've had Game of Thrones panels, which I'm shocked they didn't have one like that this year, but we'll talk about that. And that was packed. They had the John Ratzenberger panel in there, and it was maybe a quarter full.
Yeah, they even said, well, why don't we all move into the reserved seats?
Yeah.
We don't think we're going to fill those today.
Yeah, it was, and I'm sure he didn't care because he's getting paid no matter what, but it felt kind of like, oh, I wish more people were able to come and see him, but I don't know. I was talking to my fiance, and we disagreed on this, but I know John Ratzenberger's a good actor. He's a known actor, but I don't know if the C2E2 crowd is really the best crowd for him. They're not going to be necessarily drawn to, Cliff from Cheers versus Khalo Draga on a few episodes of Game of Thrones or whatever his name was. But Khal
Drogo.
Khal Drogo, yeah, okay.
Yes.
And it's I don't know. So the huge ballroom auditorium was a quarter full
Yeah,
for
yeah, because I mean, he's a voice actor. Nobody's gonna recognize his face.
unless they watch Cheers, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I don't know how many of them actually watch Cheers.
Yeah, yeah, because there's one person asking a question. Apparently, they recorded it so it's live, and one person asked, like, "How do you feel about like modern day audiences still watching Cheers?" And I was like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people are rediscovering it, especially on Netflix, but I don't know how big the rediscovery actually is.
Yeah, I mean, about the only thing that I've watched that's like old, like I watched Dr. Katz a little bit, which is like
Like a
uh,
'90s show, right?
right, it's 90s and it's a little bit older, but I don't think I would watch any like 80s shows or anything like that ever.
Yeah. I remember watching Cheers back in the day, and I'm sure if it was on, I would. I had nothing else going on. I'd throw on a repeat or something, but I don't think I would necessarily actively seek it out. But
Yeah,
again, I'm not the target audience for that, so
all right.
whatever.
But I was happy going to see him because, yeah, his performances in Pixar, I can now see just how, big he actually is because he's
Hmm.
been a voice in every Pixar production. And I was like, oh my gosh, he really is Ham from Toy Story.
Yeah, that was the big panel.
Hmm.
Let me ask you, Gorhan. When it comes to buying stuff that you have no business buying, how'd
Ooh,
you
right.
do? How'd you make out that day with
The
that?
loot. Yeah, I reserved Sunday for buying stuff. I told myself on Saturday I wasn't gonna get anything. I was just gonna, focus on it. And it's not that buying stuff there is, well, they do have good deals there, especially on Sunday. You could really make away with some pretty good comics. Um, yeah, because I actually the past 2 years I've kind of reserved this time for buying my comics for the year, even
Hmm.
though I've been renting quite a few from the library.
Isn't that
Uh,
awesome?
yeah, that the library is starting to really pick some up.
No, that you like renting comics from the library. It's so wonderful.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, they are like the trashiest things, like all beaten up and snotty and gross because every other 13-year-old has rented it.
Hmm.
But no, this year I got some Man Thing, Blade, and a Philip K. Dick adaptation called The Electric Ant, which I've never heard of. So I made out pretty good, and I got a print of I only presume to be a local artist called La Mentia, who said it was he likes Lovecraftian work, and this was a Blade Runner influence work, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is right up my alley.
Hmm.
So I bought my first print, which I will be putting up in my office at work soon. So, how about yourself?
I got some good stuff as well. I've been debating what I want to do with my comic book collecting stuff,
Yeah.
and I've come to the decision that I'm really not so much interested in the new stuff anymore. Not that I am not interested, not that I hate it or anything like that. I've just sort of grown out of it for the time being, and I'm more
Hmm.
interested in filling stuff that's more nostalgic fueled, and
Hmm.
specifically Superman comics from the
Like
late eight.
fill in the holes of your
Yeah, yeah,
collections.
and from like the late '80s to early '90s, and a lot of that stuff is so mass produced, so you can get it pretty cheap. And so I've been kind of going through wanting to collect that, either if it's in collected trade paperbacks or just individual issues that aren't collected yet. And so I found a lot of dollar stores that I was able to pick up quite a few things. So
Hmm.
I probably spent more than I should have, but if that's going
Yeah.
to be my spending for the next 6 to 12 months, then I'll consider that okay. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. So I was happy to fill those holes. The Catwoman was able to get we were able to pick up the Walking Dead, the compendium, like where it has like the first 60 issues or whatever,
Mm.
for $30, which is half off what it normally
Wait,
is.
Compendium one?
Compendium one, yes.
Okay. Have you read any of the others?
I have not. No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, I've read the first Do you know what compendium they're on right now?
I think three.
Okay. Yeah, I've read the first two compendiums, and I appreciate them so much more than I did the series.
Mm.
So yeah, I'm pretty confident you'll appreciate them
The
much more. Was there anything that you wanted to get that you didn't?
Yeah, I was looking for. So I used to buy the Flash, and the DC Comics did a little bit of a rebranding thing about a year ago, and they and the Flash story kind of it wrapped up its storyline, and I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to, and the comics were going up $1 in price, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm out. I'm done. I'm not gonna. When it comes back with issue 41, I'm going to be done. And then about just recently, DC Comics reported that they're going to restart all their numbering with their different comics, like start with number one again, get in new readers. And so I thought to myself, if they're going to restart it, I was only going to be a couple issues short from collecting that particular run of the Flash from issue 1 to wherever they're going to end up with. So I thought, why don't I finish it all out? I'll have the whole set, whatever. And so I was trying to look for those comics that I missed out on
Mm-hmm.
to see if I can get them for $1 or $2 at most. And I could not find those anywhere. Like
Yeah.
the more recent stuff. I was surprised. I figured they'd have it in bulk because it's that recent. But I couldn't find it at all. I was really shocked. What about you?
Yeah.
Were you looking for anything that you couldn't find?
Um, no, I thought I was gonna. I love graphic tees, and I was hoping to get one in a white graphic tee, um, because all of my t-shirts are either tie dye or black. Um, but I just didn't see anything, and everything was. I just felt like it was all Avengers and
Mm.
Deadpool
Yeah.
and or Walking Dead, and I was just like, I no. So
I could see that. Yeah. Just, yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, because I decided that I was gonna get a print, and I was hoping to get like a Lovecraftian one, of like a lesser known Lovecraftian tale, like I don't know, but I didn't want to get like a Cthulhu one because
everyone's going to have a Cthulhu one.
right, and I already have a Cthulhu plush on my desktop, and so I wanted to get something different, and this guy had a whole bunch of Lovecraftian stuff, and then he had this one, and he said Blade Runner. I was like, oh my gosh, so I'm happy
Sold.
with that. Yeah, exactly. But I'm happy. I wish I could have gotten more comics. I'm kind of confused with the stands and the vendors because I wanted just like some cheap comics for me to just like gander through, and I couldn't find anything, and all of them were like like the Bronze or the Silver Age stuff that are like 5+ per issue. And so because I even compiled my comic book list to like try to find some holes, but I also felt kind of rushed today, and so I didn't really feel like I had a whole lot of time to just like go through it. But
Right.
I accepted my time frame this today.
Sometimes I wonder with these conventions that if you go multiple days, you have to like sort of scout out where these different areas are and like keep your eyes
Hmm.
open for like the dollar bins or the $2 bins, and then make sure you when you see it, check it out and kind of thumb through or make a mental note of where it is so you can come back to it. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah, and I didn't bring enough cash, and so I had to use my card.
Mm.
And so for my $15 worth of graphic novels, I had $5 worth of taxes and credit card
Oh,
charges.
gross.
And I was like, I'm leaving in like an hour and a half. I still want to enjoy myself. And so I was just like, fine, you win. So, yeah, because I also forget to mention that, oh, yeah, on Saturday when we went, me and the Graveyard Queen were going to stop off for some tacos before we went there for lunch. And so we're walking down the street. We were going to like get off the train, get some lunch, and then Uber over there. So we walk over to where I thought would be open, Qdoba, and they weren't open. So we're like, oh shit. And so we just went over there and we were like, we'll just eat something in there. We went to the McCormick food court and we paid $30 for lunch for 2 sandwiches and 2 drinks.
Did you not read my classic blog post of tips to surviving C2E2?
Apparently not. Well, I'm sure I did. It's just been so long. Unless actually, I haven't read a whole lot of blog posts. I'm a podcaster now. I listen to everything.
I'm sending you that link right now.
Right. That was a big disappointment because also these are just like pitiful food.
Never buy food there unless you are planning on getting something ahead of time, like ice cream or whatever. But here's something I did learn about C2E2 and McCormick Place. If you get a soda from not the vendors, but like the actual McCormick Place, the cafe or like the little side places, and they give a cup, you can get free refills all weekend long.
Yeah.
If you save that cup. So there you go. Here's a weird thing that happened during C2E2. So we're dressed in costumes. Some people are stopping us, wanting our picture. That's great. And
the BB-8 costume.
The BB-8 costume was popular. One day when I was dressed as Golden Age Flash, this guy comes up. He's like, "Hey, Flash, can you like dance for me?"
Oh, I thought he asked the BB-8 to dance.
No. This was when I was as Flash.
Okay.
And first I'm thinking he wants me to look like I'm running, like he wants like move for me. Like, all right, so he wants Flash is running. So I get in that pose. He's like, no, I want you to dance. Like, what type of music do you listen to? I'm like, I say a song. He's like, yeah, I want you to dance. So I'm like, okay. So I start doing it. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, he's like, no, you gotta dance better than that. I'm like, are you taking a picture or something? He's like, no, I'm video recording this. I'm like, why? Well, like, what's this for? I was like, well, it's for myself. And I didn't know what to do at that point. Like, so I started dancing in like a weird way because I felt like this is really, really weird. Like,
right.
Is this going to show up like on the internet somewhere and like look at these idiots dance or something? Like, I didn't know what, yeah. Was I just harassed? Like, I really don't know what's going on here. But
yeah, I mean, the way that it sounds, it's like I could just imagine that guy doing that to every single girl there, and making every single girl feel awkward like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, gosh, that's awful that somebody would be that forceful about trying to get somebody else to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you like, maybe it was just the way he presented it. Like, maybe he was more like, hey, I'm doing this goofy video. I'm getting everyone dancing in their costumes. Do you mind doing that? Yeah. That might be a better way to go about it than to say, hey, dance for me.
Yeah. Other than, can I take a photo with you? Explain yourself, dude.
Yeah. Like, I might have been more, like, okay with it, but it was just really, really weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird stories, here's another weird thing. So we got this kind of neat this print that someone made that had the Big Lebowski on it.
Yeah.
And the print it looked like it was inspired by the drug sequence where he has the gutter balls dream in the movie. And we're on the train going home, and the conductor, who's already a bit of a weird guy to begin with, he's looking at it, and he's like really staring at it intently. And he's like, oh, that's a cool print. Where'd you get it at? And we told him. And he was like, oh, that's cool. Are you guys going back there? It's like, yeah, it's until Friday. He's like, oh. And first he's saying, like, you could get a good scanner and scan that and sell prints of that. Yeah. And I'm thinking, is he, like, encouraging us to, like, make bootleg materials? Because that's illegal, and I wouldn't want to do that to an artist like that. And then he comes back, like, hey, you guys going back there? I'm like, yeah. It's like, are you going back there on Sunday? I'm like, well, we're planning. What train are you coming home on? Like, well, we don't quite know yet. Why? He's like, oh, I was hoping you could, like, maybe buy me one of those. And it was like, what do we say to that? I mean, I don't want to be like, no, we're not buying you one, but it's like, there's no reason, I guess, why we couldn't, but, we don't know if we're going to see the guy again, and so, yeah, that was just a weird little story there about the guy. So, anyway, we've been going on for this for quite a while. We probably talked too much about it. So, do you have any other last minute things about C2E2 that you want to discuss or mention or whatever?
I guess in summary, it was a really, really fun weekend. I would have liked to see more entertainment celebrities there, which I found very significant because I guess from a financial perspective, um, I would have spent the most money on the celebrities if, my dollars speak my opinion. But regardless, I mean, the weekend was awesome. I would have really liked to have spent more time there. If I'm not willing to take off any time at work, I did the best that I can. And I enjoyed myself. And it was great to hang out with you guys, take my mom there, and, packed weekend.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun too. I'm exhausted right now. I had the fortunateness of having an over amount of vacation days at work. Like I've just been accruing them. So I can afford to take Monday off, which I did, and it is fantastic. I had a good time. I will say, I was able to meet one very big celebrity at C2E2, and he told me a couple interesting things. I met Earthman at C2E2. He was there on Sunday, and he talked around. He met the Nostalgia Critic, so that was pretty cool. He was excited about that. Did a couple of cool things. I was talking to him, and I think he might come work for us sometime. He might want to. He said he's looking into a mascot job, so maybe he might be one of the Culture Cast, the all new Culture Cast mascot, or at least one of them. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have to see what happens with that. Maybe we'll have some Earthman videos if he's willing to do that. So I'm excited about that possibility. So, and actually, some people, including Nostalgia Critic, recognized him.
Right.
So that's bonus on that. So,
Says something.
yeah, but so I don't know. Any other final thoughts?
Well, it was a wonderful weekend, and thank you for joining me this weekend. And it was wonderful reviewing it. And this is the all-new Culture Cast signing out.
We'll come at you next week with a brand new Turbo Boy for sure, which I forgot to tell you. I saw someone dressed up as Turbo Kid at C2E2. Like, he walked by, and I looked, I'm like, are you supposed to be Turbo Kid? He's like, yeah. I'm like, that's awesome. So
I saw Kung Fury.
I didn't see that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, hey, all of our podcasts, past and future, were there.
Yeah.
So
It must have been influenced by us.
Well, I don't know why they wouldn't have been. So, all right. Good night, everyone.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to the all-new Culture Cast, where every episode is all new. Check out our blog, Zach and Nick's Culturecast, at znculturecast.wordpress.com, and find us on social media. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Theme music by bensound.com. The all-new Culturecast, a saltwater production, copyright 2016. The best part of that day was when this little girl who's dressed up as Batgirl, she goes up to her and she's like, "Can I get a picture with you?" And my fiance, she was just, yeah, it was just so adorable. And so she took a picture with the little girl, and